Today's conversation is about what happens the week prior to closing. So this is a crazy time frame, and I've got Jackie Sosa, who is also Jackie Sosa Philbeck, because she's my wife. That was a faux pas, wasn't it? We're going to cover what goes on in that week and try and dive in. Now, because this is the Emerging Agent Series, you know how this works. We're going to do the first 30 minutes where we're going to do a little bit more lecturing. The second 30-minute section of this is really kind of role-playing and some Q&A. And then the last 30 minutes from like 9:30 until 10 is any topic you have. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to question of, but we ask that we limit those to about 3 minutes or so. We don't want to do deep dives into personal stuff, but every challenge you've got, other people probably have as well, which is cool. Hi, Jing. Good to see you. Jing was sitting next to me at a great class yesterday, so I just wanted to say a special shout out. Morning, Jackie. How are you?
I'm well.
Good morning. Where are you?
Everyone. I'm in my office. I know it's hard to see me. It's very hard to see me. I'm backlit, but that's okay.
You are. We'll get that fixed as soon as the blinds come in. We've got it switched around. And thank you, Joe, for the backdrop on that. You get my. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to be covering today. We're a week prior to closing. I've got some things that we're going to go through, like resolving inspections, loan commitment, insurance, buyers, sellers, utilities, clear to close, final walkthrough for the seller or the buyer, review the settlement statement, check commissions, check the costs, the separation letter. That's kind of in a summary of it. Jackie, we're a week ready to close. We're representing the buyer in this particular situation. What do we need to be doing regarding inspections resolved and loan commitment? What do you do with loan commitment? Do you have it on a calendar somewhere, or do you just kind of hope you remember?
Well, I have all my dates of all the important contingencies. I actually have it built out in SkySlope with my tasks. So that keeps me on point on when loan commitment is due. I email the lender, and I also have a personal task for myself to check and make sure that we do receive that. So it's really important to know all your dates for everything and just keep the timeline. But I really think the most important thing as we're approaching closing would be to make sure that all those inspection issues are resolved, because sometimes the sellers say, yeah, I'm going to fix it, but you don't really know if they fixed it. So you have to go that extra step and just reach out to the agent and make sure that it was resolved and say, can we see it prior to closing? Can we tour the house again for a re-inspection just to make sure that everything was done? Because you don't want to wait till the final walkthrough to find out that the seller didn't fix a huge hole in the wall or didn't have their microwave fixed or whatever the case may be. You don't want to find that out during the final walkthrough, so schedule that beforehand.
Outstanding. Jack, let me take a quick second. I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is in the classes and links section right here of the GPS Global Partners. And you'll notice as we scroll on down right here, it says using SkySlope as a transaction manager. So if you want to use SkySlope, a free software that's included to us, that is available to you. And there is an entire tutorial. In fact, Jackie's transaction management system that she uses SkySlope with that is included in there, and it's for everybody. It's literally a copy and paste scenario. And that is, again, in the GPS Global Partners. Jackie built that out for everybody a couple of years ago. It will give you a heck of a good start into using SkySlope for transaction management. Jackie, thank you. I don't want to miss an opportunity to share that because it's such a valuable document. So when you're going through inspections, we usually have inspections for us. We try and do them within 7 days. Now, you're bringing this up at the end towards closing. So what I'm assuming is we're really looking at, they said they've got this done. We want to make sure that if we have to, we've done a re-inspect. And by the way, for all of you that are new, if you're doing an inspection and your inspection period is over and is coming to an end, you have to write up an addendum. You have to say, this is what we're looking for, have it signed off. And it makes sense to put in there that you'd also like to have the ability to re-inspect upon completion. This is when you'd want that all tied up a week prior to. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. At least a week, but right. At least 7 days prior to closing.
Okay. Now let's talk.
Inspection.
I'm sorry, Jackie, I cut you off.
No, to allow for re-inspection, you want all the repairs made at least a week prior to closing.
All right, terrific. So now let's get the loan commitment, because that's kind of a big deal. How do you set up your loan commitments? You personally, I know the answer, but I want everybody else to hear it. Maybe why don't we just go through what we normally set up for our buyer or seller, what we ask for.
Okay, and I do the same thing whether I'm working with the buyer or the seller. I always encourage the buyer as well to have the inspection done within 7 days, the appraisal within 14, and the loan commitment in 21. And
How
those are
come? Why do you do that?
because we do that when we represent the seller, because that allows us to make sure that any pitfalls are be found out 3 weeks after being under contract, as opposed to a month and a half.
Also
So
makes
yeah,
your offer stronger too, right?
it does make the offers a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when we're right in there. So as long as you have your formula, ours is 7, 14, 21. I know on day 21, I'm reaching out to that lender. I not only reach out to the lender, I reach out to the agent. Well, actually, no, because I forgot, we're the buyer. So I just reach out to the lender and I make sure that I have that loan commitment, and I will blow up their phone 5 ways till Sunday. I don't care. Loan commitments due on the 21st. I'm going to get that loan commitment, or my buyer will be in danger of losing their escrow if I do not provide the listing agent with the letter saying the buyer cannot qualify for the loan.
So the important part here is this is not a time to be pleasant and friendly, although friendly works, but its persistence is important. When you're getting close to your loan date, this is mission critical. Same with inspection timeframes. Do not wait. Oh, they didn't call me back. Don't be shy. Okay, you're serving your clients. That is the most important thing. We're talking now about the loan commitment. You talk to that lender, whatever you need. I've heard Jackie on the phone. I need to know right now. That's not disrespectful. That's serving their client and your client, and it's important. Now, Jackie, if you're on the selling side, the listing side of this, how does the loan commitment time frame change for you? Do you do anything prior to loan commitment, or do you just wait for the loan commitment and say, okay, what's up?
So I wait for the loan commitment because I feel that people should know their jobs and know their contract. And I say, loan commitment is due today. Give me a loan commitment letter. So when I'm representing the seller, I reach out to the agent, I reach out to the lender, and I also ask the title company. I usually include the title company in everything that I'm doing, just so they are aware of how the file is going on. And that might be something that y'all want to do too. And I just blow them up until I get it. I'm like a dog on a bone. I will not stop because that is so important. That's the last contingency that we need filled. So I need to make sure that we have that loan commitment.
I think it's important to note as well that when she says she calls them on that day, the way we've used SkySlope, and you can actually program SkySlope that 3 days prior to loan commitment, and that's it knows when loan commitment is, that it sends out an automatic email. Hey, loan commitment's due in 3 days. So when she says she blows up their phone on loan commitment, that's true. But the truth of the matter is there is already a system in place, and it's yours. It's available for you to copy or to implement as well. But 3 or 4 days ahead of time, if you're not going to be able to implement it right now, you want to start saying, hey, loan commitment's a couple days away. And we do that, but we do that automated. That's kind of the next evolution. But I want you guys to consider that regardless if you're representing the buyer or the seller, you want to make sure the lender, who is the most important person in that part of the contract, the lender is aware that loan commitment's coming up and it's going to happen. Now, we covered this previously, but it's worth saying. We vet every single offer that comes in. We vet the lender to make sure we know that they're qualified. And Jackie, just because it's such an important aspect in presenting an offer, if you're representing the seller, and by the way, if you're representing the buyer, you still want to have this conversation because you need to make sure the lender's not flaky. Jackie, can you do me a favor? Tell me what your conversations look like with vetting the lender out.
Okay, I just call them up and say, hey, this is Jackie Sosa from eXp Realty. Your client, George Philbeck, presented an offer on one of my listings, and I need to have a discussion with you before I present it to the seller. Can you chat a few minutes? And they say, yeah, sure. And I say, okay, how far are you in the loan process? Is this just a preliminary? They'll tell me, no, I've been working with them for a while. They already got me all their income statements and everything like that. So this is a trick that I do. I never tell them what the offer is that they presented. I'll say, my listing is for $450,000. Is that in their budget? And if he says, oh yeah, they can afford $450 and they're coming in at $425, I already know. That sometimes that pre-approval letter just says $425. The lenders don't always remember. We go, oh yeah, $450. And I say, okay, no, what's their credit? What can you tell me about their income, debt? And then just try and get as much information as possible. I say, are they going to need any closing cost assistance? Are they going to like try and surprise me, later on the loan? And they're like, no, everything's solid. So once I feel comfortable with that, then I just present it back to the seller. If you start to hear any hesitation in the lender, he could, then I'm just like, you got to talk to my lender. If I'm not feeling comfortable with their lender, of course I can't make the decision for the seller, but I do tell the seller, my spidey senses are telling me just something's a little wonky with this one. So let's have them try our lender, or, it's up to you if you want to take the risk. So that's what I do.
I love that. And guys, don't be shy about that, because you want to make sure the contract's going to work. And they may have their own person that they're using, and they're like, this is my lender, I'm using it. And if you're feeling something's a little uncomfortable, you got to call it out. And remember, one of the best things I've ever found is help me help you help your client. Help me help you help your client. Because the lender's client is the buyer. Now, whether I'm representing the buyer or representing the seller, I always use that same line. Help me help you represent your client. I need to know, how long have they worked? Now, here's a couple lender requirements that I look for. How long have they been employed? Have you verified employment? Yeah, no, I haven't. Write this down, guys. Have you verified employment?
No.
Do they have enough money to come to close? That is an intelligent question. When you're looking at the dynamics of the transaction, you talk to your buyer, or if you're the seller, you're talking to the lender. But if they're putting 20% down, have you verified they have enough to close? Plus, remember this, usually there's a 3% additional expense in prepaids that are coming in closing costs for any buyer. So if they need 20%, they need 23% assets in the bank. Alec Anderson, you had something you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Shoot.
When you were going over the inspections, the one thing, hi Jackie, by the way, when you guys are going over the inspection, the one thing I wanted to say, and you and I have talked about it before, and this goes for new agents, old agents, everybody. If you're listing the property, do not take the inspection report from the incoming buyer. It doesn't matter what the issues are. It doesn't matter what the problems are that they're stating. Once that incoming buyer with their agent submits that inspection report to your email and it's open, you now are on the hook for any issue that has been listed by a professional throughout that report, and now it needs to be disclosed there on out. So if you're representing a seller and you have a buyer that wants certain credits because of this issue, or this issue, that's great. Just tell me what the issues are. Don't send me a full PDF from the inspector that puts my behind on the line.
I would encourage, Alex, thank you, because that's an important thing. And we actually covered that on the inspection side of it, but I want to mention this as well. If you do get an email, so here's the inspection report, please reply back. I'm sorry, I'm unable to open this. Please put together an addendum listing the items you'd like. You do not need to send me the full report. Just be very pleasant about it, but that's absolutely true. Alec, thank you. We can cover more of that if you could stick around when we get to the 9 o'clock section. We start doing a little more live role play, or a little bit shortly after that. Thanks, Alec, for that. I appreciate it.
I wanted to really quick. I wanted to say something back about the lender when talking to the lender. When I get that pre-approval letter, if it's an office phone number, I call that agent back and I say, I need a lender cell.
Yeah, exactly.
If your client doesn't have the lender cell, it's going to make me really uneasy, because we all know sometimes there's problems after business hours, and I need to partner with the lender who's going to answer the phone. I get the cell phone number every single time.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Right there. Next thing we're going to talk about real quickly is we're going to cover insurance. You need to have insurance. Your buyer needs to have insurance. As a listing agent, if they don't have insurance, they can't their loan won't close properly. I dropped the name of a very, very good friend of ours. He's a partner with us in our brokerage as well, Dan Brown for Insurance. He's who I go to. If you have one, great. If you don't, you may want to save that phone number. It's in the chat box. His name is Dan Brown. He is an insurance broker, so he can shop a lot of rates. He takes care of everything. And Tiffany, I hope you've already called him for insurance for the event we're doing shortly. Anything on insurance, Jackie, besides it's definitely something that should be on your checklist?
Yeah, just keep an eye out for it, and especially when we're in hurricane season. If there's a hurricane heading this way, you just got to know about the box.
point.
Which usually isn't an issue, but just make sure that your client does get that insurance binder. And again, it's one of the tasks that I have in the Sky Slope. It's just a little quick email, to the buyer saying, hey, don't forget that you have you purchased your insurance binder yet, provided it to your lender, is basically what it says.
Outstanding. And it just occurs to me that since we're sending that out automatically, we should probably put Dan's number in there. Here's our insurance broker that we use personally. You may want to reach out to him if you haven't secured one yet. Just a suggestion and a thought, but you can cover that. We're also going to talk about utilities. Jackie, on both sides, this is part of amazing service, which is what our number one responsibility is. And guys, folks, you got to remember this. At closing, you can have the best transaction ever, and it's going to be the little details that will snafu you, that will take it from amazing to horrible. And that includes management of your title company. We're going to cover that. We've got a horrible story that we're going to share with you, happened just down the road in a little bit. But talking about buyer and seller utilities, what do you do with that, Jackie?
I send them an email saying, have you scheduled your utilities yet? Here are your providers. And you just find out who the providers are to the public record. Duke Energy, and I put the phone number, OUC or whatever, and I just put the phone number in there for them just to make it easy.
How do you check to find out what utilities they use?
It's Orange County, like mainly we sell in Orange County. So it's an Orange County public records. If I do property search, it'll show the utilities, it'll show the schools, it'll show us everything in there.
Okay, so and the reason I bring that up is we're in Central Florida, and this is really all over the states, except for I think California. So if you're in California, you're on the call. It's 5:30 in the morning. Good for you being up. You're on your own. I don't know how to do California, but most everywhere else there is an information database somewhere in your county, your state, where you can type in an address. It'll tell you the utility company, the schools, and everything that Jackie just mentioned. And by the way, when Jackie's talking, doesn't it sound like, we should muffle her voice because she is a clandestine person for the government? I mean, because you're silhouetted, sweetheart. I mean, it's like it's like she can't disclose who she really is. That's awesome. So we send that out, and that's automated as well when you're doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I just plug in the information, but the shell is there. Yeah.
So if you decide you want to go and take the class that's in here, which is using SkySlope as a transaction manager, even if you decide not to really dive into it and put it into SkySlope, you should be having a checklist that tells you what has to happen. And literally, even if you're just checking it off manually, it's a cover for that file. It is really important because the devil's in the details. If you miss this, utilities can come to bite you in the backside. By the way, for the sellers, do not turn off your utilities until a day after closing, or even 2 days after closing. Well, I don't want to pay the extra money. Your bills are $500. We're looking at $40. The headache of turning it back on is more important. And the truth of the matter is your bill will stop once the buyer turns them on. High level of service is following up with the buyer's agent to make sure, if you're the listing agent, to make sure that the buyer has scheduled the utilities to go on and what date. Remember, we're going to talk about how this comes to referrals when we're all said and done. I need to say this because it's so important. Liz just put in here, we covered that last time. We talked about last week on Thursday, the inspections and the appraisals. So please, if you have any questions or concerns about that, go back to last week's Thursday emerging agent class. There's a lot of really good detail in there. Liz, thank you very much for that. Clear to close. Jackie, what does that mean? Clear to close. It's CTC. You're going to hear that quite frequently. Do you have CTC? What the heck is that?
That means that you are ready to close, that the lender has prepared and received all the documents from the buyer, and they have, what's that called? They have sent their loan package to the title company, and they're balanced, and now you're ready to close. You can schedule your closing.
This is different than loan commitment. Loan commitment is from the lender. We're committed to the loan. Now, Liz, did you guys, I'll call you out on this one. When you talked about that last week, did you kind of go into detail on loan commitment, conditional loan commitment? Was that covered? Sort of. You know what? I'm going to put a note down on there as well, because loan commitment and conditional loan commitment are two different things. We're going to cover that at the break or at the 30 minutes.
We talked about loan approval and getting people to understand, like, that's the out for people when they're doing their appraisals and stuff like that. In the event that the appraisal comes in lower, we kind of, like, it was a 3-hour call, put it like that.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot, guys. I recommend, please watch it. I know we went down a rabbit hole, but we need to separate it next week.
Remember, guys, everything we're doing here is to stop you. This is going to sound horrible, but it's the only way to say it. We don't want you to look foolish because you haven't got education on how to do this. All right. So that's the purpose of the emerging agent, is to help you with the little nuances. And every time you listen to this, you're going to pick up something new. But Liz, let's you and I cover that, and Jackie as well. Let's cover that in a little bit when we get into the second part of this. Final walkthrough time. Let's go through it. Utilities are squared away. We've got our inspections are all resolved. Loan commitments done. We've got clear to close. We're scheduling a final walkthrough. If we're representing the buyer, what are you doing, Jackie, to schedule your final walkthrough? How does that look to you? Who are you having conversations with?
I have the conversation with the listing agent to make sure that the house is available for the final walkthrough and that all of the seller's personal belongings have been removed, anything that conveys. You really have to know your contract. And there's nothing worse than showing up for the final walkthrough and you didn't know that the washer and dryer is supposed to be there and then it's gone. And your client says, well, wait a second, the washer and dryer is supposed to stay. And you're like, it was. So you really I have a board and I write little cheat sheets on my board, the closing date, the price, the commission, if I'm charging a transaction fee, if there's a seller credit, if there's anything. So I can always look, I see it right now and I can see exactly what's going on. So if it's washer and dryer convey, something particular to the deal, chandelier is going to be replaced with this. I write it on my little board, or you just refer back to your contract. So I just make sure that those things are there. I do communicate with the agent and I say, please make sure that they keep on the utilities, because a lot of times new agents don't know, or they don't communicate with their seller that the utilities need to be maintained, the pool serviced, the lawn cut through, everything needs to be like, you'll roll up to the house one day and the grass will be this hard. And you're like, what? And it just looks bad for your client that they're, have to schedule for a long guy to come in on the closing day. So I just communicate all that with the listing agent prior, just to make sure that everything's done. And then when we do the final walkthrough, we just go through the house and we just make sure that everything is clean. And I get them all excited about where you're going to put your stuff. And oh my God, this is so great. And, I just make it really fun for them to walk through.
So from a seller perspective, she touched on a couple of things as well. If you're listing the property, be prepared for final walkthrough. Broom swept clean. That means it doesn't have to be GI'd, but it can't have crud all over the place. Everything is out. If there is a TV mount that's on the wall, that stays on the wall. If I'm wrong on this, correct me. That has to stay on the wall, or they have to fix the holes behind it. Jackie, anybody else? Is that accurate?
Well, the contract says that the TV mounts stay. So if the buyer wants them gone, then you negotiate that out. But per the contract, the TV mounts stay.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Can you go ahead?
A fixture, right?
I'm sorry, Alec.
It would be considered a fixture, no?
Yeah, that is correct. You're absolutely right. It is a fixture. And if they're and Jackie put the point on there that if you're going to ask for that, make sure you ask for that in the contract, that the TV mounts stay, or the TV mounts are replaced and removed and the holes repaired. Repaired does not mean a perfect match of paint, by the way. Yeah,
I had that happen on a deal. It's actually when I left KW and I got a call from Murray. And I started laughing. He's like, wow, what do you want to do? I'm like, you know what? I'll just go buy the lady a TV. They wanted the whole TV, not just the mount. But I remember walking through that process directly.
Got to be on the contract. Got to be on the contract if they want the whole TV. Kenya, go ahead, hon.
Yeah, before we move on to another subject about the utilities, when do I tell my buyers that they have to connect the utility? Like how far away? Or do I wait until closing day?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So Jackie and I have a process. We like to make sure that they're aware of that about a week ahead of time. Hey, you're going to need to schedule your utilities prior to closing. I would ask to have them turned on the day of closing. 2 reasons for that. Number one, we obviously want the utilities on when we're closing, and we want to make sure that they're squared away when they're moving in if the seller turns it off. Number two, it assures that they are still doing what they need to do. And sometimes it's nice to be able to leverage people into that kind of stuff. So give it a week ahead of time and send it out to them at that point, because this is really where we're talking. Great question, Kenya.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see. Final walkthrough, buyer and seller. We just covered that. And going through it, the next thing is reviewing the settlement statement. And this should freak everybody out if you haven't done it yet, because it's about 3 pages and it's a big mess and you don't know what the hell you're watching. And that's okay, because neither do we.
You'll learn it though real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, you will learn it. So go through everything. And what I would do is I always say to the title company, send it to me first. And then I call the title company and I said, will you review this with my client, buyer and or seller, the day or 2 days or 3 days, if you're lucky, prior to closing. I want to see the settlement statement 3 days ahead of closing, because I don't want closing surprises. And Liz, you're exactly right. Lizette, we're going to cover that in just a second. Jackie, when you're going through the settlement statement, what are you looking for?
I make sure that the figures are pretty much right, that the purchase price is correct. Now, there's a lot of things like the loan points. I always tell the buyer that's on you. You check that part, honestly, because I don't want to do it for them. I don't know all the details about their loan. So they check that, but I just look at the doc stamps on the deed and make sure that the commission is correct. Obviously, if there's a transaction fee that we charge, I make sure that's on there. If there's no homeowners association, I have found that I would say 98% of the time, they're charging for an estoppel and it's erroneous because there's no HOA. So they don't need to charge my client for an estoppel. So even, when I represent the seller and I'm always having to call, hey guys, oh, it's a mistake. I don't know why they do that, but look out for that, because that just has your client's best interest. And I don't bring it up to the client and say, oh, I caught this mistake. No, I'm just stealth. I just deal with it. And then the title company looks good that they did their job because I recommended the title company to them as a seller. And even as the buyer's agent, I don't tell them that my client that I fixed a mistake. I just fix it. So I just look over all that. If there's a seller credit, you have to make sure that that's on there and really understand the prorations about the taxes and the HOA dues and whatever else. Just have a good understanding of all that. And if it looks like it's balanced, I just reply back to the title company, looks good to me, please send to my client. And then I call the client and say, hey, I just saw your settlement statement. It looks great. Your balance to close is roughly this. I let them know. I said the title company is sending it to you for review, but I just want you to know that everything is accurate on my end. Except for the loan part, you really need to look over what your lender's charging you and stuff like that. And it's pretty simple.
Couple of footnotes here. Call the title company. Hence the reason I want it 3 days ahead of time. Call the title company and say, it doesn't matter if you're listing the listing side or if you're the buyer side. Call them and say, I am relatively new. Can somebody please take a moment or two to go through everything with me so that I become more educated? They're glad to help, because that allows them to come from service to you and they want more of your business. So this isn't a burden to them. This is actually the best time. And as long as you have enough time, that's great. If you do this a couple of times, you're going to get pretty good at it. Now, they're all written almost exactly the same. Each state has rules on how they write them. And that's terrific. I would encourage you to make that phone call to the title company, because they can answer every question. What's this for? What's this for? What's this for? What's this for? And if you need to, and you're representing the buyer, call the lender and say, listen, I've got some questions on this. Now, when you're sharing this with your client, it is not your job to be the expert. It's your job to have good knowledge. And it's perfectly okay to say, you know what? That's a great question. Let's get the title company to get that one answered. Write it down, call the title company, get your answer again if you're not clear of it, and then call them back with the answer. That is still great service. Couple things. First off, Holly, stick around. I'm calling on you as soon as we get back. I want to know about Utilities Connect. I need to know more about that, and I know you can share that information with us. So when we get to a break in a few minutes, I'm going to have you do that. Cover that for me as well. So we're looking for commissions. Lizette put something in here that's important. Jackie, you talked about this. You and I talk about this all the time. If there's a credit to the buyer or the seller, you definitely need to check that. So it's really what you said, Jack. You're reading the contract and then checking the contract to make sure the closing statement, the settlement statement matches, right?
Right. Or any addendum. Right. If there's $5,000 credit, you just have to know what's going on with your file. Always.
Now,
always. Yeah. I call it a file transaction, whatever, I call it a file. You just got to know, you got to know it.
100%. Now, what do you do with your buyer? Let's say it's the day before closing and they haven't wired funds yet. What are you doing?
Kick them in the butt. No.
However, folks, don't make this mistake. You are not responsible for wiring instructions. That is the title company, and they need to call the title company and send the wire. Here's a footnote. When you're scheduling your closing, we're going to cover that in just a couple of seconds. If you're writing a contract, do yourself a favor. Do not schedule closing on Fridays. Here's why. If there's any delay, anything, anywhere, no matter what, your clients won't get in until Monday, and they'll be pissed. They'll be pissed at you. Do not schedule closings on Friday. Do not schedule closings on the last day of the month. If you can avoid it, do not go to closing on the 15th of the month. If you have to schedule on a Friday, make sure your buyer acknowledges prior to submitting the contract, if we're going to close on this Friday, it is very important that you are literally at closing before 10 a.m. Is that acceptable to you? Because it does take 2 or 3 hours for wire funds from the lender to get there, and even more time and unverifiable until it arrives for your buyer to wire the funds to title. Wiring the funds for closing, let them know we're going to do that a day prior to closing. Once we get our settlement statement, everything's good, we're going to wire our funds then. This is why you want your settlement statement a couple days ahead of time, if at all possible. The only way to get that, by the way, is to have your loan commitment be done, I don't know, let's say 21 days after contract, and closing being 30 days. So you got plenty of time where everything's done. Now you can start hounding the title company saying, I definitely want to review that settlement statement 3 days prior. You have everything you need from us. What's missing? Here's why. We're going to tell you a story of what can happen if it's not managed properly. And the truth of the matter is, you're going to be the one that has to manage a lot of this. Now, of course, you have a partner with a lender. Make sure they're doing their job. Of course, you have a partner with a title. Make sure they're doing their job. Jackie, you want to tell a story about the house down the street where we went to close and she was the pilot? This is an example of how great turns horrible. Be aware of this. This is your job.
I forget. Oh, Mary, where they didn't realize that the title company didn't realize that she had a second mortgage, right? To pay off. Was that it?
Yeah, we got the settlement statement about an hour at 4 o'clock, an hour prior to her closing. Now, she's a pilot. She's flying all over the country or all over the world. She does international flights. And this was the most flawless transaction. We set records. We exceeded her expectations on every single aspect. And she's going to be closing in an hour. And we reviewed the settlement statement. She reviewed it. She goes, what'd she say? She's freaking out.
Yeah, because her payoff wasn't on there. And then they sent a mobile notary, and the mobile notary couldn't answer any question. So even though the mobile notary is very nice service for your seller, I'm more geared to not use them anymore because they really don't know a lot, as opposed to just like going to the office and then you've got people there at the title company that'll explain it and can fix it. So that was, for me, that was just mortifying that the mobile notary was like, I don't know. And then I'm calling everybody saying there's a second mortgage and having to clean it up. So we did such a great job for her, and then it just fell apart right at the very end.
They literally forgot it. She flew out to Istanbul or something, came back a week later. We got it closed. And truthfully, here's the issue. We didn't review the settlement statements early enough because we didn't hound the title company 3 days ahead of time to make sure it was right. We could have solved everything. Mm-hmm. Please don't make that mistake. Now, this was a perfect transaction in our neighborhood where we work a lot. And it was an opportunity. I'm sorry?
It's where we live.
It's where we live. Yeah.
Subdivision, yeah.
100%. This was, and this lady knows a lot of people. That was when it closed. We haven't really spoken after that besides our follow-up, but there hasn't been. We went from amazing to not so great. And it was the title company's issue. I'm going to take full responsibility for our part. We should have been more proactive, but we expected them to do their job. Don't fall into that trap. They will be as good or as bad as you allow them to be. Same with the lenders. Y'all hear this clearly. As good or as bad as you allow them to be. How strong is your checklist? How closely are you following dates? That's the important part. Mr. Landry, you got something you want to add, sir?
Yeah, I just want to add a quick thing there. The wiring itself as well. Don't assume that that's going to be smooth. I had one a few months ago where we went to title. They had tried to wire the money the day before, and we showed up at closing, and it didn't go through. So whatever happened when they went to their bank, and it was a large bank, it wasn't like credit union or something. Somehow they never sent the wire. And so we got the closing and they didn't close that day. So I just wanted to add that, stay focused and make sure the wire actually goes through, have them check their account that the money actually came out of their account. So that happens. So it's just another example.
I want to touch on wiring real quick as well. Thank you, Keith, very much. I appreciate that. And it's staying on point and making sure you follow up in the micro details. If you are wiring funds to a title institution or a closing institution, the funds wired from the buyer do not count until they are physically received. The wire has been received. In my state, check your state. In my state, the state of Florida, if the title company determines and that loan or that wire authorization has been sent by the lending institution, by the bank that's sending the 80% or the 90%, title can determine the property to be officially closed. They have funding authorization, which means their wires coming in. That doesn't take hours. Your client's money, the buyer's money going into the title company, it will not, cannot, and won't close. You won't get keys until the money is personally received into their bank account. There's a difference. Lending institution, bank that you're taking the mortgage from, authorization of funding, good to go. Your money being sent, your buyer's money being sent, until it shows up, you don't get keys, period. Title company cannot make the determination the property is closed at that point. If this happens on a Friday, what Keith just said, thank you, Keith, on a Friday, you send it over at like 1 o'clock. Well, it'll be there by 4. There's a glitch. All right, you send it at 4. It doesn't show up till Monday. You're not getting keys. Your clients will be furious. Get on them because it gives you the out as well. Listen, we want to send our funds today, Thursday, although please don't schedule a closing on Friday. We want to send our funds Thursday to make sure they're verified, and let's verify that they get there in time. So that way we can go and close. And once your lender sends it out, we're all set. From a buyer side, I always check with the listing agents. When are your clients closing? When are your clients doing when are they signing? I want to know because my buyer wants to know when they can get the keys to the house. When is the seller closing if I'm representing the buyer? The same thing in reverse. I want to know when the buyer is closing if I'm representing the seller. So I want to touch on closing gifts. And I think
one thing I want to mention, George, we're going back to the loan commitment and everything like that. We're dealing with the buyer. I'm constantly communicating with my buyer. I don't just say, okay, we're past the inspection, we're past the appraisal, and don't talk to them for like, a few days before closing. Hey, what's up? You ready to close? No, I'm constantly, hey, how you doing? I'm always messing with them. How you doing? You didn't buy anything. You didn't buy a big TV yet, right? Because they're going to pull your credit right before closing. A lot of buyers don't know that the lender will pull their credit again prior to closing. And if they went out and purchased a new couch or their score goes down, they're not going to qualify for the house anymore. So please be sure that you tell your buyer, don't open up any line of credit. Don't change your credit. Don't buy anything. Don't take any money out of your account. Don't give anybody, don't loan them $2,000. They're going to review all of that again prior to closing. So that's just what I wanted to say, that I'm constantly, and I say to them, are you doing your homework that your lender is asking you to do? What do you mean? Are you supplying all the documents that they need? Are you on top of everything that your lender wants? Okay, great. Because if not, I don't want you to default on your loan because you'll lose your escrow. So I kind of scare them a little bit about that. So please make sure that you're giving the lender everything that they need. Just what I wanted to say.
No, I appreciate that. I want to cover one thing real quick, and that's the separation letter. And y'all consider this. I say this all the time, and you can write it however you want to, but I would encourage you to have this as part of your arsenal and on your checklist. About a week prior to closing, send out a letter to them, preferably, in my personal opinion. I like to send it out later in the evening that goes something like this. Deep, you're top of my screen, so I see you. I'm just going to pick on you as well. Hey, Deep, it's George. I just wanted to write this quick note. I know it's late, but I wanted you to know how much I'm going to miss our regular conversations. It's nice that we've had an opportunity to work together, and I feel like we're creating this friendship. But I know that you're going to get extremely busy, and we're not going to talk every day as we have been or as frequently. And I'm not happy about that. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we continue to build our relationship and work on it. And I want you to know how valuable this time has been to me and how much I've enjoyed your company. I just didn't want this to go unsaid. Have a great night. Sorry for such a late email. Now, here's the reason why. This is what happens at closing. We just covered the last week, and it's like conversations every day. We're talking, we're having a great time. Oh my God, we're going to go closing. We've got loan commitments. Great. We've done that. We've reviewed everything that looks perfect. Let's go to the closing table. But before we do that, we're going to do the walkthrough. Oh my God, we'll put our furniture here. This will be beautiful. The house looks great. They've done a good job. Your washer and dryer's in place. This is awesome. All right. Day before closing, day of closing, we go to closing. We're at the closing table. We're signing everything and we're happy. I give them a gift and I give them a hug. I say, congratulations. We walk out, and that's the last they hear from me for 3 months. You're now transactional. You're not service. If you have that conversation and identify what will absolutely happen, it'll stop that total disconnect. The replies you'll get back from that are going to be heartwarming. You'll know your relationship because they're going to say the same thing. And me too, let's try and do that. It allows the friendship to evolve, and that's where your referrals come from. This is a mission critical. A quick note, just telling them how much you enjoyed working with them and how you hate the fact that logically we're not going to speak as much as we have because they're going to be moving in or relocating or whatever the case may be. This is an important note to send. Okay.
And if you use SkySlope for your transaction management, you can actually put a little email in SkySlope, just write it in there 3 months after closing date. Hey, just thinking about you. Hope you love your new house. Hope you still love your house. And then you can set another one for 6 months. Hey, did you change that paint color? Whatever you want to personalize about the house. Just wondering, blah, 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 whatever. My point is that you can use SkySlope to send those little touches after 3 months, after 6 months. And then on the happy 1 year anniversary of your home, call me. I'd love to catch up. And even though the transaction is closed in SkySlope, because that task is still there open according to the date, SkySlope will send it out for you. And what'll happen is your client will, oh my God, that was so nice to hear from you, Jackie. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're still loving our house. And they'll communicate back with you because I know I forget a lot. So if I don't booby trap myself and do it immediately, I'm just going to forget about the dates. So I use SkySlope for that.
Love it. And Elizabeth added something in there, which is, did you file for homestead, which is a Florida thing and quite a lot of other states as well. That should be part of your checklist to remind them, hey, have you filed for homestead? Yeah. They need their closing settlement to do so. But that should be part of it as well. Folks, remember, I would hope that you're putting them in KV Core or whatever your CRM is. And at that point, you assign to them an action plan of what happens after closing. We use SkySlope to give us our after closing, what we're doing with them, our reminders, because that's where Jackie spends most of her time. But you can also use KV Core and have a just closed checklist, which may go a year out, where you're sending them an update of what their new home value is a year from now. It's up to you. This is all part of great service. I did want to mention one other thing. Mona asked, do you mind sharing it? It's not a template, Mona. It is a reminder for us to write a personal note about them, about the fact we're not going to be communicating, because each one's going to be a little bit different. And it's just quick and typed. We actually press a button and talk into our phone, our computer, and it types it for us. It's just a personal quick note at the end of the night kind of thing. I think, thank you. Yeah, Holly uses the handwritten app for the thank you cards. I use AM cards for that too. Holly dropped in the chat how to find information on the, let's see if I can pull this up real quick. It is in the chat. I pulled up 2 of them, so that won't work. And this is on the utilities software that we have. I believe, is that correct? Concierge service, start earning additional revenue. God bless you, Holly. I want to show this to everybody real quick. This is terrific because it's all about providing great service. This is Utilities Connect. The link is in the chat that Holly gave us, and it will cover everything you need to know. It offers great service to your clients, creates lifelong customers. Read through this, get to know it. As a service provider of awesome, you should probably consider looking into Utilities Connect. Holly, are you on the call? Can you give us a little background of how you use this?
Yeah, so I have my TC has the link to, so you can, the link that you just shared, that there's a link that says like activate my profile or something. And you can set up a website. It's like a splash page with your profile integrated into the Utility Connect. And then you have your own login too. And you can just create it and play around with it, because you can have them do like, you can kind of do a mock where they can send you the info, so you can kind of go through it and see what your client's seeing. But yeah, they're just a concierge service. It's free to your clients to use. You know, they don't have to use it, but they're there to handle things like internet, cable, and any other utilities they're allowed to handle in that municipality. But so I have my TC integrate that in her cadence with, you know, the client. So where they would normally send out just generic, like a list of utility providers, she'll also send out like, hey, here's this concierge service as well. And you get 15% of any fees that the service providers would pay Utility Connect.
Outstanding. And y'all think about this. You're providing a discount for them, and you obviously get some form of compensation, which is cheaper than them actually marketing. You are just making an introduction. This isn't an upsell. It's not costing them more. It's actually saving them money and offering them convenience. And isn't that what we should be doing in all aspects? We don't refer the most expensive painter we can possibly find. We refer the best painter, and hopefully it saves them some money and helps them get the job done effectively. Same thing happens with utilities. I love that. Jackie, you and I are not into Utility Connect, but I can assure you that I'm going to be digging into it in just a little bit. I hope you are as well. Grab that link, sweetie. And I think it's important for us to look in that.
Okay.
All right. Jackie, I want to let you finish before we get into any Q&As and really kind of dig deep, a little deeper. Anything that you want to add that we didn't cover?
I just think not really. I think we covered everything. I think the important thing is to always communicate with your client, get to know them, and it makes the closing gift a heck of a lot easier if you know what they like and what they don't like. Yeah, but I think we covered everything, George.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Kenya, you have your hand up.
Yeah, closing gifts. Let's give me ideas on those. I'm about to close one and I have no clue when I'm gonna get these cards.
Okay, tell me about your client.
She is a step-home mom, 3 adult children. The husband works from home. He does anything with computers, like ITs and stuff like that. They're very nice couple. They're not like, you know, those people that go out and stuff like that. So
Go ahead, George.
Well, I was going to say, this is my standard, and Jackie's in our standard. I just pulled it up for everybody. We cook a lot of seafood, and this is an ozone machine for $49, and it's thebomb.com.
Well, we give that depending on the person, or like you mentioned that they have adult children, so their adult children live with them.
Only one is going to be living with them.
Okay, so usually if I know they have a lot of family elsewhere, I get them a digital picture frame.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and so they can email photos in, and I said, oh, I know your son is not living with you. Whenever they go travel, they can email your photos, and they'll pop up on your digital frame. Especially since she's computer and IT, she's going to really love it. And you can just get that on Amazon.
Okay, so somebody recommend me just to take them out on a dinner, you know, night. On a nice restaurant, and give them like a gift card for $200 or $300 or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm passing that by you to see if this is the norm.
So I like to get them something tangible, because if you get them a gift card, they're going to forget about you. If you take them to dinner, they're going to forget about you a week later. But if they see that digital picture frame, or if they see a nice set of knives, or if they have dogs and go like, oh, I like cooking or whatever, I say, oh my God, you have to try this ozone machine. You know, it takes the smell of everything out of the air. So I always give them something that they can use time and time again and remember me for it.
Thank you.
I just dropped the digital picture frame in there as well. It's $147. However, please be advised, you can write off $25 of closing gift. Everything else is not able to be written off. So you're going to spend a little, but the bottom line is, and the digital picture frame is our go-to, and the ozone, because we use them personally. They're phenomenal. And you can email into the digital picture frame. Now, if you want to go high level, set it up for them, and then send every couple of months a Christmas card through the digital picture frame, because you'll have the email address that you set up, or their ability to send a photo into it. They can delete it, but then at that point, you're able to communicate with them. Just wanted to wish you a happy Merry Christmas to the Smith family, whatever the case may be. but easy to do, very fun to use. That's our go-to as well. Thanks, Jackie, very much.
Welcome.
All right, let's see. Welcome. Oh, I love that. Wills gets a welcome, Matt. That's awesome. We covered, Laura, what is the limit on the closing gift? Never heard that. $25 for, you can write off $25 of your closing gifts. Anything more than that, you cannot write off as a business expense, which means you're paying taxes on it. And think about it, your tax bracket's 25%. If you spend $100 or $147 on this frame, you can write off $25. The true cost is not 25 because it's tax-free and you're just paying 25, is actually going to be, of that extra 125 is going to be somewhere around $30 more than that, or 155, because you have to pay tax on the money you have. So you always want to write things off for your business. That's a different conversation. However, that's just some quick numbers on it. Let's, Jackie, let's open it up to any questions anybody has or comments that can help support this, and then we'll get into general real estate topics for everybody. Anybody got anything they want to add or any questions that they've got? And let's see. Alethea, hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, George. Thanks, Jackie. It was awesome to see you on the call. And your information is awesome. But I actually wanted to kind of tag along to the gifts. I met with this gal at the convention, the Florida Realtors Convention, and she had knives and cutting boards. And the way that she was kind of explaining it to me was that I could get like a batch at one time, and it would be like a marketing expense instead of a gift expense, but I would be giving it to everybody that I would close with. So I just wanted to throw that in because maybe that might be a little way around the $25, quote unquote, stay in with between. But then that way it would have my name on the knife and like a little saying if I would want it, or I could like customize it to certain dates, that kind of a deal. So I just wanted to throw that in. And thank you guys. I appreciate that,
Alethea. You're absolutely right. We actually have branded Coco knives that we use. And because they're branded, they are marketing as opposed to being a giveaway. Now, I used to give away shoulder holster carry or coolers that were branded, and it didn't matter what the cost was. And I still can't find good ones, but they're phenomenal and they use them forever. I used mine for 10 years till it fell apart. But you're right. Your point is accurate. If it's branded, it's marketing. If you're giving them a gift, like in this case, the Picstar digital frame, that isn't branded. That's a gift, and that's where your expense comes in. So hopefully that helps. Thank you for that very much.
I will say, just whatever you do not give away Yetis or Yeti clones, dupes, whatever. I go thrifting in my spare time. I love going thrifting, and I can't tell you the number of realtor branded Yetis that I see at Goodwill. They're just giving them away.
Yeah. If you're going to give those away, give them away to your realtor partners, because we're the only ones that give a damn about that.
Yeah.
All right. Debbie says, I gear clothes. Debbie, Deborah, say what you just said.
What?
And Maria, I'll get to that in just a second.
I gear my closing gifts towards my clients and who they are or what they're buying. So for first-time home buyers, like the young veteran that I helped you all heard about, we ended up supplying his whole house because he didn't have anything, but that was due to donations from the community. My husband and I went out and bought the broom, the mop, the dustpan, the stuff that he actually needed. Costed us maybe $75, and then another $75 for cleaning supplies that we power washed his house with and stuff like that. But we actually cleaned the home and made it ready, move-in ready for him.
That is terrific. I love that. I
also help investors with cabins when they're flipping them to rentals for Airbnbs and VRBOs. And for them, a lot of our cabins here are bear themed because we're in the Smokies. So I'll go out to a wood carver and get them bears that are carved from wood or some kind of bear decor that they can use in the cabin.
It's cute.
I love it. Marissa asked a question, and it goes back to where we were a little before. She said, why don't you close on the 15th? The 15th and the end of the month are the busiest days for closing. That's the reason we don't. I don't want crowded. I want service from title. Doesn't mean that that's inappropriate. That is the lesser of all evils would be the 15th. I would rather say don't close at the end of the month and do not close on a Friday, if at all possible. And then the third one I would default from is the 15th if I can do it. It's not mission critical though. Great question, Marissa. I appreciate that. That's my reasoning behind that. And gift versus marketing. I'm reading through this. I'll get to that in just a couple seconds. Capped at 25, I believe. That is correct, Tiffany. It's 25. All right. Anybody have anything else they want to add on this? We've jumped into that. Sky Soap task we covered. Loan. I think we've covered everything. Jackie, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're awesome. Deep. Sorry, buddy. Just I saw your hand up. Yes, sir.
I just have a comment. We need Jackie back more often.
Ah.
That's all I gotta say.
How can you tell that's really Jackie?
I can tell.
Woo.
It's very difficult to see you, Jackie.
I
You
know.
know, George, it's
Jonathan
always great
Master,
seeing you,
what's up,
George, but,
Jonathan?
you know, Jackie is like
George
you know,
stole all
you don't
the
want a
light.
cameo.
My little cameo appearance here.
This is such a, and she's like, well, I've never done this before. Joe, did you get my notes on the new backdrop for her?
Yeah.
All right, great. So Joe's working on it. Y'all do not have the authority to call Joe and say, just send me a backdrop. You can negotiate with him. He's really good at making them, but that is not a service that he's providing. And I just threw you under the bus there, Joe. So I'm sorry. You do have to do that for my wife because she's basically the boss. I'm the servant here. But for record, if y'all want to, you can hire Joe to put one of these together for you. He's pretty good and he's reasonable, I'm sure. But that's
Wait, did we
outside of
answer-
my hours, buddy.
Do we answer Maria's question on the best time to schedule a walkthrough?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I missed that. I was reading through them.
Is she
Answer.
still on, Maria?
Go ahead.
I don't know if she's still on. The best.
Sorry, yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
usually do it. I like to do it either no later than the day before closing, but preferably on the morning of closing is when I like to do the final walkthrough. And yes, they should wire the money. If they can wire it the day prior is better. Like, no,
Okay.
I wouldn't have them wire it. Once they know their balance to close, they should wire the money.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Two things that came up. So 100% marketing is 100% write-off. That's correct. It's marketing. That's directly to Holly. I think I responded to that. That's absolutely, don't forget. Maria, did I get your question? I think I did. Maria, are you on? Did I forget it?
We just talked about it.
Okay. I just got a note on there that says, don't forget my question.
Yeah,
And I
sorry,
forgot
we
what
just
the
talked
second
about
thing
it.
was. Okay, good. I'm glad it was covered. I saw the note and I didn't want to miss it. Thank you very much. Anybody got anything else they want to cover as far as that week prior to closing? What you got to do? Did y'all get some good stuff out of this? I hope. Awesome. Thank you, Clara. Appreciate that. Let's open it up for general questions. Jackie, thank you very much. If you want to stick around, this is where we cover anything and everything that has to do with real estate. There's no topic, and it's simply a matter of how we can help our emerging agent partners. Anybody have challenges they face, things that have come up that they want to get addressed or have a